care of it. If you buy it, you're changing the oil on that, if you will, right? You're going to be maintaining the system and making sure that it keeps running. Some more differences. There are substantial federal tax credits available to customers. And these really do count. They really add up. It's 30% of the total amount that you spend you can take off your next tax bill. But if you don't buy the system, you don't get that tax credit. In other words, whomever owns the system is going to get the tax credit. If you're a leaser, you don't own the system. The solar company owns the system, and they're going to capture the tax credit. If you buy the system, then that's an opportunity for you. Customers remind us that not everyone has a tax burden. For instance, if you're retired or maybe you're disabled, you may not have a tax burden. That can definitely change the circumstances for whether buying or leasing is better for you. It does go away in 2016. So we also want to consider that NV Energy has an incentive as well. Customers can apply for their project in advance of construction. Generally speaking, it's actually the contractor that's doing the application for you. And NV Energy will pay the customer an incentive that's based on the size of the system once the system's completed and totally interconnected, totally finished. Now the customers may select, we allow customers to select if they'd like us to assign that check or deliver that check directly to the solar company. And in most cases, solar leases require that. If you're entering into a solar lease, you might look at the fine print because you'll probably find that it's going to require that you assign your NV Energy incentive to the solar company. Okay, so lastly, financial return. We see that most customers, if they're going to be in their home long enough, the financial return is going to be better if you can own it, right? If you can buy the system and own it yourself, you will probably see a better return in the long run. If you get a incentive from NV Energy, you allow us to count your solar system amongst all the solar in the state, and that goes toward our renewable portfolio standard. Many of you have probably heard that NV Energy is required to have, by the year 2025, 25% of our total generating capacity from renewable resources. So as an incentive customer who puts solar on, we would count your system amongst that 25%. Now, customers don't have to take the NV Energy incentive. You can still take the federal tax credit, but opt out of the NV Energy incentive, and then NV Energy would not be necessarily allowed to count your system unless we approach you and buy or negotiate for your production credits, which is what we call the quantifying of the renewable system that you've installed. This is a little bit of a complicated subject, so if you're talking to your contractors about production credits, make sure that you get lots of information. You've got good resources through the Public Utilities Commission, and their organization is called NV-TREC. That's the organization that actually tracks those customers who control their portfolio energy credits. So it's really important because the contractors describe this in a certain way, but it's not an easy thing to understand, and you want to get a full understanding before you pass on the incentive. All right, well, now that we're here, let's try to describe a little bit about how you're going to find out how much money you're going to save, because if you're installing solar, and most of you here probably are concerned about saving money. It's not that hard, though, to understand how much money you can save from solar. We said that based on the system size, we know how much energy a certain system is going to produce. For our example, we're going to say that that customer who had 10,000 kilowatt hours of consumption a year decided to only put on 4.5 kilowatts. That was an appropriate size system because maybe there was a portion of his roof that was in the shade or any other of those circumstances we talked about. But for our example, we'll use 4.5 kilowatts. We know that a typical kilowatt produces 1,890 kilowatt hours. So that means that this system would probably produce about 8,500 kilowatt hours in its first year. Well, where can we take that? We can look right on our bill and find out what NV Energy charges per kilowatt hour. So if we multiply 8,500 times the typical flat rate kilowatt hour charge for Southern Nevada customers at 11.9 cents, that means that that production would have a value to you of about $1,000 in the first year, right? So a 4.5 kilowatt system might be worth about $1,000 savings over the course of the year off of your NV Energy bill. It's pretty interesting. But how much does it cost to actually get that savings? What do you have to do to save $1,000 a year? And I think it's good to think about the cost of the system, even if you're thinking about leasing it. If you were leasing a car again, you probably have in the back of your mind, how much would this car cost me to buy? So let's talk about what a typical solar system costs to purchase, straight outright. We know that our 4.5 kilowatt system, and since we track the average cost of installations, this is where we said at the beginning, the average cost is down to $4.50 a watt. Well, $4.50 a watt is the same as saying $4,500 a kilowatt. So if we multiplied 4.5 times 4,500, that's going to give us a total system cost of about $20,000. That's the sticker price of this system here. But we know also that we've got an NV Energy incentive. So let's talk about that. Right now, customers applying for NV Energy incentives would get $245 for every kilowatt that's installed. $245 a kilowatt. That would reduce this system cost down to about $19,000, so pretty substantial savings there. Furthermore, you're going to get this federal tax credit. The federal tax credit is 30% of the total amount that you pay. So 30% of that $19,000, $5,700 comes off of your next tax bill. In other words, if you paid $6,000 in taxes, you're going to get $5,700 of that back in this scenario. That reduces your cost down all the way to about $13,000. So you can see that these are really the things that are driving the marketplace. They're helping to reduce the costs and make them approachable to everybody. What does that mean if you're going to buy the system? You're going to talk to contractors who are going to describe a couple different methods for understanding the benefit to you. The most popular is simple payback. That's not a hard thing to understand. If you know that you're going to save about $1,000 a year on your power costs, how many years would it take you to pay back $13,000? About 13. Right? So that would be a 13-year payback. And you're going to find that that changes in range a little bit. Some people will be able to get the price lower for shorter paybacks. Sometimes, depending on the complications and the cost of the system that you choose, it might be longer. But that's an interesting one that you'll often hear. Return on investment is also spoken of as well, and that is describing how much interest would it be if you were getting $1,000 of return every year on the $13,000 investment. So that'd be about 7.5%. These are considerations for buying a system, but what about for leasing a system? How do you understand your costs for leasing a system? Well, for starters, up front, most of the leases are not requiring any upfront cost. But you will have a payment, a month-over-month payment. The typical way that we're seeing customers' payments being structured is through a PPA, or a power purchase agreement. What does that mean? The contractor is going to measure the amount of power that comes off of their solar system. And each month, based on that measurement, charge you a bill for the power that they offset for you, the amount that you got from the solar system that you didn't have to buy from the energy. So a PPA is a very common way to go about that. What's that going to look like? If you were to take our average of $8,500 a year and say that that was about 700 kilowatt hours a month, you're going to have a bill from your power company that would be the amount of power produced in the month multiplied by their kilowatt hour charge to result in the solar bill. Okay? Now that's kind of interesting because if you remember, you're paying NV Energy by the kilowatt hour as well. So it makes it for a very easy comparison. You're going to be able to look at your kilowatt hour cost from NV Energy and compare that to the kilowatt hour cost from your power company. So it's a really easy way to directly compare what you're getting from each. But that's not going to be your total cost of energy because remember, you have a power bill coming. You're going to remain connected to the grid so you can turn the lights on at night, right? And your solar's not working. What's your total cost of electricity? Quite simply, the remainders of your NV Energy bill plus your solar bill is your total cost of electricity. Now this is where it's a consumer's job to make sure that you're getting what you expect. You want to make sure that as you understand this, you're not going to have a total monthly cost of power that's greater than you would have had if you didn't go solar. Right? No one wants that. You want to find a way that you're going to save money with those two at the end of the month. And the thing that is very interesting about the rates that the solar companies are talking about is many companies are including an escalator or an increasing rate on their quotes to you. So they might come out at the beginning and say, you're going to be paying 10 cents a kilowatt hour for ABC Solar's power that you're taking advantage of. That's the right to use this solar system that's strapped to your roof. You're going to pay 10 cents a kilowatt hour for every kilowatt hour that solar system makes. But oftentimes customers are finding that also is going to increase year over year. And in many cases, we're seeing that increase as 2.9%, an escalator of 2.9% each year. It's very easy to assume as customers that, well, gosh, my power bill is going to go up year over year, right? And it's true that everything gets more expensive. Inflation drives costs in all ways. But remember, NV Energy is a regulated utility. We have to go in front of the Public Utilities Commission to demonstrate anytime we need to change the rates. And the drivers for those rates are very interesting. Principally, it's going to be our fuel costs, right? But also the cost for our personnel, our linemen, all of the people that make power happen for you. And what's very interesting as well is if we look back all the way into 2009, the overall increase in rates for your area has been 4%. Not annually 4%, altogether 4%. I can't tell you where it's going to go, but do be cautious as you're looking at your opportunities to make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into. 2.9% is an ambitious range. Once you're to this point and you start to really want to think about diving in, we'll kind of recap to say, what do you need to do to move forward? First of all, remember to look at energy conservation and efficiency measures first. Again, it's the best money spent for energy efficiency and conservation. When you're ready to talk to solar companies, have handy your information about your consumption. It's going to be one of the first things they ask you for anyway. Be ready for that when they ask. You can go to nvenergy.com and sign up for my account if you haven't already. When you start talking to contractors, get a few bids. Make sure that you have something to compare to. It's always funny to us when we hear people that have only talked to one solar contractor. I know that I want to test drive a car, and I might go to 2 or 3 dealerships before I choose a car. And do the same thing. Be a smart consumer in that way. And contemplate whether leasing or owning is better for you. What's the best solution for you? Understand your benefits and detriments for taxes and incentives and everything else. And that's where we talk about the NV Energy incentive and decide whether or not it's the best thing for you to do. Once you actually have worked with your solar company to the point of getting an application provided, which most of the solar companies will do for you, that's when you can sit back a little bit more. The solar companies are getting very good at getting the installations done, coordinating your installation through your local building department, and then coming back to NV Energy to apply to be interconnected. Interconnected is what we call it when we finally tie you in and allow you to turn your system on and get the benefits. Once that's done, once the construction's done, there's one big step that's very important that NV Energy must do, and that is the final safety inspection and the meter set. Remember, we need the right kind of meter on your house before you're going to get the benefits of net metering. And before we do that, we have to make sure that the energy that you're producing and pushing onto the grid is as safe as our energy. We're going to be essentially vouching for your energy because it's going to be delivered to our other customers, and they don't know the difference, right? And after that, you'll be able to enjoy the benefits of solar once the meters are set. Once the meters are completed and set, then that's when the solar system can be turned on and operated. We have a great website that talks about solar. It's easy to find at nvenergy.com/solar. You'll find a lot of descriptions of the things that we talked about, including net metering and the incentive program right there on our solar website. And of course, you can always reach our program directly. Our program is called Renewable Generation, and we offer the incentive directly to customers for installation of solar. We have an email here and a toll-free number that you're welcome to call anytime if you have any questions whatsoever.
So anybody who has not been to the Nevada Energy website, you guys have not done your job, because that is who everybody goes by. That is like our law. Any market that you guys are going to go in, you guys are going to study the utility companies up and down, and they provide almost everything on the website. I do have a guy's name that approves every one of these systems. So he's kind of like the go-to Nevada energy guy. We have another guy that actually